Cheering section on their feet.
If there isn't an 8 on the river, it's all over and we have our champion.
The river card is up for...
Oh, it's in it! And he's...
That was life-changing money.
I just fist pumped the air with both hands.
I was the happiest guy you've ever seen.
It's just a game of cards. An inspiring, exhilarating game of cards. We're not saying you're going to be the next Hashem, the next Kid Poker, the next moneymaker, although you could be. We're not saying it's going to change your life, get you the millionaire pad in Vegas, although it might. We just want you to play. It's the game of kings and queens and has made champions, legends of both men and women. Think they're glad they learned the game? But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Slow down. Let's not run before we can walk. We all have to start somewhere, people, and this series is going to teach you everything you want to know. And forget the high rollers for now. Let's play the game for the game's sake. It's supposed to be fun after all. Tense, nerve-wracking, pulsating fun. Stick with us and master this game of nerve, this game of will, this game of math and precision, this fantastic game played the world over. Are you playing? Whether you're a beginner or advanced, stick around, watch the show.
There's no right or wrong way to play poker. There's not one method that will guarantee success, but there are ways and means for you to maximize your chances of winning. There are good habits and bad habits. There are situations to avoid and situations to seek. And there are those who have the knowledge to exploit them. We're going to teach you how to master the game, from the basics to the advanced.
Let's start at the beginning, ladies and gents. Well, it's a good place to start. Yep, today's show is all about teaching you the basics, the nuts and bolts of No Limit Texas Hold'em. In a moment, you're going to watch your first tutorial. Each show will include 3 distinct elements: the aforementioned tutorial, which runs you through the general principles, a hand or two from the vault to illustrate the principles in practice, and pro analysis section, where a hand is dissected in detail, all geared towards helping you become a better player. And who knows where that might lead. We'll look at poker played all over the planet, but today we visit London as we review some action from the European Poker Tour. We'll hear analysis from one of the most recognizable faces in poker, 2005 World Series of Poker champion Joe Hashem. We'll get tips from recent EPT winner and leading British talent Liv Bourret. And we'll watch Kid Poker himself, Daniel Negreanu, in action, winner of 4 World Series of Poker bracelets and a staggering $14 million. But now, time for the first tutorial.
There are many different versions of poker, but we will be teaching you the most popular and best version, Texas Hold'em. The object of the game is easy: to win your opponent's chips. This can be achieved by having the best cards, or alternatively by betting and forcing all other players to fold. When a player folds, they are discarding their hand, as they do not think their hand is strong enough to win the pot. In Texas Hold'em, each hand begins with every player being dealt 2 cards face down. Players must then combine their 2 cards with the community cards laid face up on the table. At the end of a hand, if 2 or more players remain, cards are shown and the player with the best 5-card poker hand will win the chips. Sound easy? Well, let's find out what beats what in the ranking of hands.
There are many forms of poker that all use the same hand rankings. We're going to concentrate on No Limit Texas Hold'em. Remember, a poker hand always consists of the best 5 cards, made from the community cards and the 2 dealt to you. So let's check out what beats what. First, you have your high card. When nobody has a pair, the player with the highest card in the hand wins. You're more likely to win with 1 pair, a hand that has 2 cards of the same value and 3 unmatched cards. But twice as good, 2 pairs. Just like it sounds, 2 pairs and 1 random card. Not bad, but not as good as 3 of a kind. 3 cards of the same value and 2 unmatching cards. Next up, you have the straight. A straight is when you have 5 cards in a sequence. Better still is the flush, when all 5 cards are of the same suit, but not in sequence. Now we're getting good. A full house is when you combine 3 of a kind and a pair, which is rare, but not as rare as 4 of a kind. A hand that contains 4 cards of the same value and 1 random card. Lovely, but beaten by a straight flush. A hand that contains 5 cards of the same suit and in sequence. Bettered only by the royal flush. The best hand possible. 5 cards of the same suit in sequence from the 10 to the ace. Nice. So there you have it. Don't forget them, write them down, whatever it takes. Just remember them, as it's pointless to play poker without knowing them. How did your poker journey start? Maybe it starts today, right here, right now. One thing's for sure, we all take different paths.
My name is Boris Becker. I used to play tennis. Now I play poker whenever I get the chance. Well, I played poker already when I played tennis, because in all the rain breaks we had at Wimbledon and some of the other tournaments, what do you do? So I play a lot of card games, I play chess, I play backgammon, but in particular I like poker then. In those days we played the 5-handed and not the Texas Hold'em, but meaning I go back 20 years of when I first started playing poker.
Now, back to the tutorial.
Let's look at how a poker hand is made. As we explained, each player must combine their 2 cards with the community cards. Here your cards are King, Jack, and the community cards are Ace, King, 3, 5, and Jack. So what poker hand do you have here? The answer is 2 pairs, Kings and Jacks. But hang on, every Texas Hold'em poker hand consists of 5 cards. Well, in this case, the Ace makes the 5th card, as it is the highest unpaired card. Also known as the kicker, but we will cover that later. Back to the basics. Before any cards are dealt, the small and big blinds must be posted. These are forced bets which encourage further betting. The size of the blinds depends on the game being played, but the big blind is usually twice as big as the small blind. The players that post the blinds are always determined by the dealer button. Online, it is a disc with a D in it. The player to the immediate left of the dealer is always the small blind, and the player to their left posts the big blind. The dealer button is important, as it determines the sequence of play. The button moves clockwise around the table after every hand, so that everyone takes a turn of posting the blinds. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be fair.
Recap. As mentioned, the blinds are placed before the start of every hand and are compulsory. Yep, that's compulsory. No getting away with it. Their presence encourages players to play their cards because if there are chips in the middle, well, someone will want to win them. Without blinds, players would only play the best hands possible, or no hands at all, and that would lead to a very boring game.
A poker hand involves up to 4 rounds of betting. The first round occurs before any community cards are dealt, and the first player to decide what to do is to the left of the big blind. In this case, the player decides to raise to $6. Following their action in a clockwise order, each player then has the option to fold, call, or raise. A fold forfeits the chance to win the pot, but doesn't cost anything either. A call matches the bet of the previous player and keeps you in contention. A raise increases the bet and forces anyone else to pay chips to continue in the hand. When the first round of betting is complete, the 3 community cards are dealt. The common term for these 3 cards is the flop. Once the flop is dealt, there is a second round of betting. Now the next person to act is the first player to the left of the dealer. If no one has made a bet in front of you, your options are to check, which effectively means to take no action. Or alternatively, you can bet a chosen amount. This player chooses to check. His opponent could also check, but decides to make a bet, forcing the player who originally checked to at least match his opponent's bet in order to continue in the hand. He decides to call. Once this round of betting is complete, a fourth community card gets dealt. This is known as the turn card. Then there is another round of betting. Finally, a fifth community card is dealt, known as the river card. And there is a final round of betting. This time, both remaining players decide to check. Once the final round of betting is complete, the player holding the best hand takes the pot. In this hand, the player holding King 2 wins the pot. Let's remind ourselves why. He has made 2 pairs, kings and 2s. This is a superior hand to his opponent, who has 1 pair, jacks. As we have learned, 2 pairs beats 1 pair. I think that makes logical sense. We will learn more of the basics in part 2 of the show.
Now let's see those basics in action and take our first look inside the vault.
In this hand from the European Poker Tour, Daniel Negreanu has King Queen of Hearts and decides to open the betting with a raise to 300.
Me first. Okay, I'm in.
Angel Shlomi is holding Queen 10 and decides to match Negreanu's bet and make the call. The next 3 players are holding poor cards and elect to fold. The American Faza Banyadi is in the small blind, which in this hand is 50. With 50 chips already invested in the pot, he decides to call another 250 to match the 300 bet. The player in the big blind, Christopher Chow, has 100 chips already in the pot. He only needs to add 200 to match Daniel's bet of 300. Tempted in with this discount, he decides to make the call. The 3 community cards known as the flop are then dealt face up, and the player to the left of the dealer button is first to act. Both players in the blinds check, and Daniel Negreanu decides to make a bet. Here's why. The flop has given him a strong hand, as he has a pair of kings and needs just 1 more heart to give him a flush. The other players have made no pair and therefore decide to fold. Bluffing one of the best players in the world isn't advised. Good decision, gents.
To really fit in at the poker table, you've got to learn the lingo.
Give him a bad beat so he can go on tilt.
You're a master of the English language.
Calm down, buddy.
Keep going, kid.
Shut up, superstar.
So let's cover a few terms. The nuts. To have the nuts is to have the best possible cards in any given hand of poker. If you have it, you're unbeatable. For example, after this flop, you'd be holding the nuts if you were holding a pair of aces, as 4 of a kind is the best possible hand at this point.
Yeah.
Hole cards. Hole cards are cards dealt to the player face down, so that no other player can see them. So, in Texas Hold'em, you always get dealt 2 hold cards. A set. A set is simply another term for 3 of a kind. In Texas Hold'em, it refers to when a player has been dealt a pair and one of the community cards gives them 3 of a kind. Talking of sets, here's Boris Becker and My Game. Well, his game, but the feature's called My Game.
Well, I wish I could tell you that my poker results are as good as my tennis results. Not yet. I got to improve a little bit, but I have cashed a few times. I've cashed the EPT Barcelona. In the main event, I cashed on the WPT, I cashed in a couple of small events, a couple of side events. So, you know, no, my prize money isn't as much as it was in tennis, but it's getting there, and I hopefully improve with the next few tournaments.
One man who fits in at any poker table is the 2005 World Series of Poker champion Joe Hashem. Listen up as he takes time to analyse a simple hand for us.
Today we're going to look at a very simple process of betting in poker. The hand that we have for you today gets folded around to Silas, who has ace-king, a very strong hand. Silas raises to 600 chips. The next few players fold their weaker hands, and now Big Dog, with a pair of 10s, has 3 options. He can fold, he can call, or he can raise. He elects just to call the bet and see what happens on the flop. The button folds and so do the blinds. So the flop comes out 10 Jack Queen. Now this is a very interesting flop because Silas now has the best hand possible, called the nuts. He has the best straight, which is a running 5-card hand, Ace, King, Queen, Jack 10. However, Big Dog also has a good hand here. He has 3 10s, 2 in his hand and 1 on the flop, giving him what we call a set. Silas decides to bet 750 chips. Big Dog just calls. He's not sure that he's got the best hand. Silas knows he's got the best hand, but Big Dog is thinking, okay, what I need here is for one of the cards to make a pair, so then I have a full house, which is 3 of a kind and a pair. On the turn comes a 2 of clubs, making no difference to the board. Silas now bets 1,500 chips. Again, Big Dog, taking the cautious option, just calls the 1,500 chips. The river brings a 5 of spades. Again, no difference, Silas still has the best hand. He has the nut straight. He now decides to bet 4,000 chips. Big Dog calls quickly, sees the bad news, Silas wins the hand.
We're going to teach you everything you want to know about poker, but if this episode doesn't suit your level, or if you want to review some of the other episodes, then go to everythingpoker.com. Time for a break, but before we go, a question. Which of these players is holding the winning hand? Is it player A with Queen 10, or B with 2 4s? Have you been paying attention? Well, we'll give you the answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you which of these players was holding the winning hand. Well, let's work it out. Player A has 3 of a kind queens. Player B has a full house, 3 4s and 2 queens. This is the winning hand. As we can see on the hand ranking chart, a full house is higher than 3 of a kind, so would therefore win the pot. Everything you wanted to know about poker is divided into 2 levels. Level 1, the novice level, tells you everything you need to know to get started in the game. You'll be a competent player by the end of these 6 shows. Learn the power of position, the art of bluffing, and all the basics. Once you've got the basics, we delve deeper. Level 2, the experience level, covering getting information from your opponents and the nuances of playing hands dependent on their strength and potential. Talking of potential, here's Boris again.
Well, I really like to play online because I don't need a room full of players. I don't need to have an organization. I just need my computer. For me to improve, I have to keep on playing the live events. Obviously, a lot online as well. But the only way to improve is to play. The World Series, I think it's everybody's dream. On the other hand, I like the EPT a lot. It's around my neighborhood. Vegas is a long trip from London, but the EPT is around here. So I'd love to be one day in the final table of an EPT.
Okay, let's continue our learning with a tip from one of the best.
I would definitely advise new players to study every piece of material that they can. Get a solid understanding of game theory, the basic concepts of poker, and the best way to do that is to read. There's so much material online. These poker forums have just great hand discussions. You can buy books, there are training sites you can subscribe to. It's vitally important to draw on all the resources around you.
Got that? Good. Here's the second part of today's tutorial.
If there are at least 2 players still in contention after the final round of betting, there will be a showdown. Everybody shows their cards, and the player with the best 5-card poker hand wins. In this case, the player holding ace-king takes the pot, as he has made a pair of aces, which of course beats a pair of queens. The two highest community cards make up the rest of the 5-card poker hand. Usually, the player who made the last bet or raise shows their hand first. The other players have the choice to either show their cards or throw them away face down. This is called mucking your cards. Here's an example. Player 1 made the last raise in this hand. Therefore, he has to show first. Player 1 shows a pair of aces. This player has 3 of a kind. Very nice. Now, player 2 can decide if he wants to show his hand, but he chooses to muck his cards instead. Unsurprisingly, he has a hand weaker than 3 aces and doesn't want to show his cards. Player 3 is next. This player can't beat 3 aces either, but decides to show his cards anyway. Probably because in this case, he feels he's been unlucky and needs some chat box sympathy. Player 1 wins the pot, and those are the basic showdown rules.
To really fit in at the poker table, you've got to learn the lingo.
You have a big hand?
Raise when he's behind and check when he's ahead.
I'm crazy, but I'm not stupid.
Something tells me you have a monster. I wish I had your brain.
Kicker. A kicker is a card used in poker to decide ties. For instance, if 2 players have a pair, the winner will be the person who has the highest unpaired card. In this example, one player has a pair of queens and a jack, and the other has a pair of queens and a 10. The player with the jack wins. The jack, in this case, is the kicker. Remember, a poker hand consists of the 5 best cards, made from your cards and the community cards. Pot. The pot is the accumulation of all the players' bets. It's basically a term used to describe the big pile of chips in the middle of the table that everybody is trying to win. Okay, back to Joe Hasham now to explain how to avoid making a costly mistake.
We're going to talk about the dangers of playing aces with bad kickers. So in this hand, we see Ray raising it up to 150, which is 3 times the big blind. Mr. Raiser from the small blind decides to call the 150 with ace-7 suited. Now, he's in danger here because he has a very weak kicker. A kicker is the second card that you have with your ace. So for example, if you have ace-king, you have a very high kicker. It's the best kicker possible. If you have an ace-2 or a 3, it's a very bad kicker. The flop comes down 10 high, and both opponents decide to check. Now here's where the danger is. The turn card comes an ace. Now Mr. Raiser has a pair of aces with a 7 kicker, and Ray has a pair of aces with a jack kicker. Mr. Raiser decides to bet 200, and Ray, playing it pretty smart here with his strong kicker, just decides to call the 200. The problem Mr. Raiser has here is that he has a pair of aces with a small kicker, not knowing that Ray has a bigger kicker. So at the end of the day, Mr. Raiser needs to get a 7 on the river to make 2 pair so he can beat Ray. So now we see the river is a 3 of spades. Ray definitely has the best hand. Mr. Raiser checks. Ray elects to bet 500. Mr. Raiser decides to bet all of his remaining chips, 1650. Ray obviously calls, and Mr. Raiser loses the pot, knocking himself out of the tournament. The dangers of playing aces with a bad kicker.
We're going to teach you everything you want to know about poker, but if this episode didn't suit your level, or if you want to review some of the other episodes, then go to everythingpoker.com.
Well, that might not be everything you want to know about poker, but it's a start. Let's review what we've learned today. Something you can't play the game without knowing: the ranking of hands. It tells you exactly what beats what, and it's important you learn this. We have shown you how a poker hand is made by combining the 2 cards dealt to you and the community cards. We covered the rounds of betting, when and in what order they take place. And you should now understand what the blinds are, where and when they are placed, and why they are crucial to the game. Finally, we covered what happens at the end of the hand if 2 or more players remain. A good old-fashioned showdown.
To practice all you've learned and see the basics in action, go to www.pokerstars.net and follow the simple instructions for downloading the free software. Once you're up and running, this week's task is to join in some play money games. They don't cost a thing, and it offers you the best way to familiarise yourself with all that we've covered today. This will help you hone your new skills and take those first steps to becoming a winning player.
Here's what's in store in the next show. We look at which cards you should play and those that need to be thrown away. We travel to Barcelona for some priceless words of wisdom from 4 elite players that it's really worth listening to. And we'll receive more expert analysis from World Series champion Joe Hashem and the player with the highest tournament earnings of all time, Daniel Negreanu. This is the greatest card game on the planet, ladies and gents.